Hey, what's up, DJ Digital? Maybe you've heard me on Hot 1079, weekday mornings from 6 to 10. Maybe you know me from The Breakfast Jam. Maybe you listen to me nationally, Double XL Higher Level Radio, weeknights from 7 to midnight. But you know what? I'm going to be off the air and on fire. Louisiana on fire. I'll be off the air with my man Tim Davis, and anything goes. So tune in.
What's up, Louisiana? You're back again. Louisiana on Fire, Tim Davis, DJ Digital, and we left off with a big question
A loaded
because
question.
I've been knowing you for a few years now,
Yeah.
you know, and we connected. Like I said, went to school with his wife and everything.
Yeah.
But you've been great here, man.
Yeah.
We want to know how you got started in DJing, man. Where did it come? Yeah.
Oh man, I wish it would. I'll tell you, it's been a journey. So earlier we were talking a little bit about like the world that you knew musically was usually like whatever fit in your case logic case, or if your parents remember like back in the Gap, there was this whole piece of furniture that like had like drawers,
Yes,
that glass door that
Yeah, clink.
that clicked in. You know what I'm saying?
Yes,
like
right.
yeah.
Uh-huh.
So like whatever was down there, whatever you were lucky enough, if you had $20. And even if you had to get the edited version at Walmart, or if you
Yeah,
got
I
some
did.
adult to buy you the dirty version
Yeah,
at
right.
Sam Goody in the mall. Shout out to all the strangers who bought me explicit CDs.
Thank you all.
Thank you. You know, probably not the best move on your part back in the day from an ethical standpoint, but thank you. Whatever you had, man, was like that was your world. So I would gather like all of this music, and like I remember even whatever you didn't have, you knew where to go get it. So shout out to the countdowns. You knew like, man, I just got to tune in because I know I'm gonna have like it's the hot 8 at 8, or the top 7 at 7, and you knew you would hear all your favorite songs. So man, I was a genius of like the pause record.
Yeah.
I had a tape deck behind you. Like I was a master of like you had the record ready and all you had to do was like unclick it, when the DJ would stop talking, ironically, and you would get enough of your favorite songs. So, mixtapes, I remember rushing to get home. If I knew I had to cut grass, I'd wait until Dolby would go on and mix at 6.
Oh yeah, bro, Dolby
D, man. And and I think about like as a DJ just on the radio, which is a whole different thing, is like that responsibility or just that like what you're responsible for an entire region knowing. Like the records Dolby was playing, or any DJ. I mean, you pick someone like a Bobby Novosad who recently just got like a lifetime achievement award. People think like, oh, you guys are competitors. You're talking about him. It's like, nah, man, like like I said earlier, about however you get there, you want people to get there, because if your competitors are doing well, that means the industry's alive.
Yeah.
You want competition. You want an iron sharpens iron. But like coming up and listening to those guys, Dr. Boogie Live, my mom would listen to Dr. Boogie. I remember meeting him just being like, oh my God, my mom would listen to you all the time. Like those records, you'd rush to the radio because you knew they were going to play songs that like, there'd be something new, there'd be something you'd love. And then you'd go out and try to find those songs. You're telling people on a counter. So I mean, that was me. I was that kid. So I was like the kid who like learned about Ace of Base. So I was like the pop kid, the hip hop kid. I knew the rock. I had it all. So how I got started DJing is, I think I tell people my first official gig was like my friend's little sister was like turning 16, I think, or something. So at that time, I had like a bookshelf stereo.
Yeah.
Remember like the 7-disc changer?
Right.
And it had like tape, CD, the 7
All
CDs.
that, yeah.
And then like aux. And you had like whatever you can plug in. So like I had a Sony Discman and I had my bookshelf stereo. And I don't know if you ever like splice speaker wire together.
Yeah, my cousin showed me how to do that.
To get more speakers hooked up, not knowing you only had this many amps to push. So I had like 6 speakers, hooked up to it. Well, I remember I hooked up those speakers I was telling you in the car, those 15s.
Right.
I remember hooking those up to it, get a little more bump. And it was like upstairs at their house. And, for me, it was like I got to quote unquote, I didn't realize what I was doing at the time. I was just playing music for her party, but that was probably the first like proper, gig where I like, would literally, like I had a CD and I would play a song, no headphones, nothing. And then I'd have the Discman on aux
Right.
with a CD loaded up, with Warren G regulators.
Yeah.
At the time, and like as soon as I can click from CD to aux, and there was like always a little delay, then hit play at the same time, or hit play then aux, to where it was this abrupt switch, but it was like switching from song to song and watching the energy in the room change.
Yeah.
So like that's technically where I think it started.
Wow.
But I feel like the start is like it's the journey of like absorbing all this music and just knowing how it made me feel and wanting people to feel the way I felt listening to these songs.
Right.
And wanting like it's when you got a good song and you can send that link to whether it's Spotify.
Yeah.
Oh, you gotta check this out. And it's like we still have that feeling where we want to like show people new music. And that was me. It's like I wanted people to know like that I knew what songs were good or what songs I liked or how I could put them together and go from this to that. So I remember just kind of sweating through that. That was like, and then from there, just kind of like, I remember having like just janky equipment, but it didn't matter, man. Like having a friend who had the equipment, that was usually it. There was a time where like I was DJing. My first DJ gig was like the summer after I graduated from Comeaux, and I didn't even have DJ gear. It was actually, there was a guy who was like dating a girl that I worked with when Just for Feet opened.
Yeah.
And I worked there. Bro, that squad, Cupid worked there.
Come on.
Like at some point, I think I was Cupid's manager, which is a joke in itself. There were some dudes that were in from UL. This dude Lincoln, they call them West Bank Lincoln. If you're from New Orleans, like wherever you're from is the first part of your name.
Right.
Your 7th Ward, whoever.
Yeah.
And this was West Bank Lincoln. So Lincoln, and he was coming to UL. He's from New Orleans. Like him and Cupid, that's where that's
how that connection came. Yeah.
And yeah. So those guys are working and like just shout out to Breck and my friend Julie, who kind of works in the music industry now. My friend Mike, he's in real estate now, I think. But it was like you go back and you look at the people you work these first jobs with.
Right.
This girl Iris had a boyfriend who was a DJ, like a real DJ though. Like he had turntables. And turntables were expensive.
Yeah.
Like especially when you're 18, barely. So I couldn't wait to get off of work because if her boyfriend came to see her at work, he might invite me back to his place with another DJ friend, and we would just go to his house, and he had more records.
Wow.
And then a friend would come over with his records, and I had my little, stash, and we would just get together, and we would just, from midnight till 5 a.m, just like I was just infatuated with it.
Wow.
So it was like that's how I got to see like technically how it worked and understanding like this side is this line, this side is that line. I just stayed at it. I eventually bought like a one turntable and I'd hook up my computer to the other side and I would just I would practice like scratching. I would go to Tunes, spend all my money on records. Shout out to Super Dave. DJ Mooch back at the Promenade Mall when it was there. And from there, that's what I really learned about dance music and techno and, met some of the DJs who would become some of my best friends and mentors. And I feel like it was just like everything just followed. But to what I was saying is like, I didn't have equipment, but I had a gig. Clubs would have equipment there. So like you go to the club with your music and they had the stuff to play it. So I had to learn how like CD players worked. And, once you kind of learn, it's like, it's all relative. So, here I am. So if you went to the Keg summer of '99 for the next couple of years, whatever wave of the Keg you were there, you're welcome. And then eventually like Dolby played on one of those nights. So kind of going back to listening to him on the radio, it was like I watched him pull up in his white Ford Probe, and I'm like, wow, it's him.
Right.
It's him, and his brother would help him, and they would before he started, it would be 30 minutes to an hour of him just. It was like a clown car, man. More records would keep coming out of that Ford Probe. Anything he was going to play that night, he had on vinyl.
Yeah.
So he would just bring all his records in and just surround him, and I'd watch him just work.
Right.
So for me, it was always like I was doing it, but I'm listening. Like back to what I told you earlier, like you listen more than you speak. You got 2 ears, 1 mouth. Like,
right.
So I'm just like absorbing as much as I can because I'm seeing what I would hear and watching how he would transition and. I had other friends and just really paying attention and just really grabbing the, just along the way, picking up on as much as possible, learning how to make my own music and like edits and just getting with friends who, taught me, how that side of it all worked. And, okay, well, this is how you make this sound. This is why this is this way. And just learning and learning and learning. And there's a lot of great guys, DJ Johnny Cage, learned more about life probably from him than music, because he was just, yeah, man, he was just years ahead of his time. Met him kind of through Dolby, and just, you realize like-minded guys kind of share the same wavelength. So, guys like DJ Trashy, like we were all kind of coming up at the same time,
right?
Figuring it out and just creating new things,
yeah.
And just borrowing and sharing ideas. And it was so fun, man, and like anything you ever heard from us, and even to this day, I think was just the product of us just figuring it out. There was a guy, he's since passed, DJ Dick. He was a DJ, but he loved like the technical side of it. So he'd have like, I could say it now, like he had the server. If you wanted like any program or plug-in or anything, like you could just go to his, he just gave it all away. Like he loved being able to like teach and give to people to see what we would create. And like, shout out to him, because, if I didn't have those, there's no way I'd be able to afford what it would cost to have like a full studio. And so man. Like little by little, man, I feel like, so like, where did it start? I feel like it's always been there, but just moments you remember. Like I said, that 16-year-old birthday party where I don't even know what I played. My version of it, is probably like in a movie where it's like, whatever.
Right.
Meanwhile, I'm just like some nervous dudes back here, like, why is there silence for 5 seconds? You're figuring it out. But yeah, man, from there, and I feel like to this day, like that energy still exists, just in a different way. Like to this day, I think those are my favorite events to play. I've played for thousands of people.
Yeah, you played for some major stuff, man.
I played for some huge events, but dude, let me tell you, 20 people in a room at a house party or a private event are some of the wildest parties, best events, most appreciative people. Just that connection's just, you can't beat it, man.
Yeah.
So, like I said, and I feel like I'm still learning.
I was about to ask
I'm always learning. Technology's always, the technology of DJing has evolved so much. I've been doing this for 25 years.
25 years, bro.
Professionally. Before, if I go back, you could say longer than that, just tooling around with my Discman, got the anti-shock, the speakers are bumping, the CD's skipping. I'm like, I don't know what to do. So, but yeah, it's just like you think about where I started, and now you look at the technology, I could DJ a song from anywhere in the world through streaming now.
Yeah.
And like be able to manipulate it and do all the tricks and the, all that stuff.
People all over the country to hear you at one time.
And I tell people, like, if anybody's listening and wants to DJ, like, a lot of those features aren't made to make DJing easier. It's made to make certain parts of it, you don't have to think about it, so that you can do more. Yeah. You can build on, like, all right, I don't have to worry about, like, and nothing ever worked. That's what I loved about DJing. Like, there's always one turntable that was a little off, No, don't tap that one. You tap that, the left side goes out. Like, but it's back to the car. It builds character. Yeah. It makes you be very good at it and have to pay attention and kind of know those little, like, sensitive things that kind of make it this or make it that. Right. You're like, there's nothing, people hire me not because like I'm technically good. I think I tell people, whatever you do in life, especially if you're good at it, if you could charge a lot for it, if you're highly sought after, it's not because you're good at what you do. It's because you know what to do if like shit hits the fan. Yeah. Like you know how to make it look like nothing happened at all. And I think like, if anything, that's really like if I have a talent, it's that. It's like, how do you keep things going without it being like a big deal, and you just kind of figure it out.
So you run into some issues.
Oh my God,
man! What happened, man?
So most recently, I'll tell you. Shout out to my man, Unique man, Paul Wall's DJ. So at Patty in the Park, right? Paul Wall's playing, and all of a sudden, like his DJ Unique, he's out of Dallas, great dude. In the middle of the set, his computer starts bugging, and I'm like, I'm watching this go down. I know how much time's left. I see what his computer's doing. So like, Paul's talking to the crowd. Paul doesn't know that things are kind of bugging. And like in my mind, I know where this can go and what can happen. So like, I had just gotten off the set. So I'm like, I know what his set list is. I know I have at least 70% of those records, even though they're not the show edits. Because, he may have a verse on Grills and he's not gonna do the whole song. Yeah. So it's like, what records do I have that'll just be his, to where like, his DJs is like freaking, he didn't know what to do. And I saw what the issue was. I'm like, whatever it is, let's just restart. I'll get it through. We ended up doing like a happy birthday to him. So like I got the crowd to sing happy birthday. That bought us more time. Man. So if anybody filmed that night, go back and look. And someone did tell me they noticed what I did. They're like, yo man, I noticed you kind of saved the day. Like you kind of see people doing this behind the thing. But man, you just got to be calm. It's going to be what it's going to be. Yeah. So like I ran a couple songs. I think I ran like a local song, maybe like a song from Mouse or something, and then they got back on track, man. The show
Come on, man.
show rolled. So I'd say I don't care if you work offshore, I don't care if you work in an office, I don't care if you work for yourself, even just raising kids. Like, you are good at what you do because you know what to do when things go wrong.
Yeah.
And that's really the measure of like if you're good or not, because anybody can get on YouTube and learn how to do anything.
Oh yeah, exactly, man.
Like I said,
it's quick.
But when shit breaks, it's like you don't know what to do because
to
like,
fix it.
how do you fix it?
Yeah.
How do you make it seem like no one else knows that anything's wrong?
Right.
You know. So yeah, that's a big thing. Is like be a solutions person.
Man, well, look, all right, so I'm gonna go ahead and pivot a little bit.
Yeah.
How did you get started on the radio with 107.9?
Oh my God, man, not wanting to do it.
What?
Yeah, man, not wanting to do it at all. Bro, I thought, so as a DJ, so I started as a DJ first, so let's take it back to like officially DJing. The guy who hired me was the guy that was at my first gig, Dave Steele, who still works with us at Town Square Media in Lafayette. And I mean, he's like, again, he's a friend of mine for 25, almost 30 years, So he was DJing and I was just a kid. So I never finished the story. So the guy that, the boyfriend of the girl.
Yeah.
My man, and Keenan is his name, DJ K-Sport. He actually went, I guess to like audition. He was an established DJ. He was throwing parties. People knew him. He was doing his thing. Well, he went to like, essentially try out at the time. This dude, Bobby Seiler, was running the Keg. And I was just going to hang out.
Yeah.
So he was like, it was an empty night. It was like, so he got to get on the set and kind of do his thing. And, the owner's kind of watching him. So like we leave that night. And like at some point he was over it. Nobody was there. He went to the bar, get a drink, whatever. So I got this equipment. He's like, yeah, man, you can run it.
Right.
So he goes off to talk to friends, dead dance floor. So I got on, I start doing my thing, So as we're leaving, the owner pulls me to the side and he goes, hey man, who are you, Hey, look, man, I really liked what you did up there. So I'm struggling with like, oh man, I rolled with my guy to like his thing. And now all of a sudden this dude's kind of offering me an opportunity. And I'm like, man, I got to take this opportunity. And thank God that I did. So like, I was like, yeah, bro, when I tell you I had no business saying yes to that, like I didn't have music. Keep in mind, I'm going to his house. I got like a stack of records, no turntables.
Nothing.
They didn't have turntables at the club. So like, I remember going to Johnny Cage's house. He lived off of Clinton at the time in Freetown. And like, that was a couple blocks away from the Keg. And I'm like, man, I need help. I'm playing the Keg. He's like, man, roll by. And like, it's probably somewhere in a case. And he made me, and I had CDs.
Right.
So keep in mind, this is the summer of '99. 400 Degrees just came out.
Yeah, man.
Like, Back That Thing Up is still a brand new record. Around the same time, Nelly.
Right.
The first Country Grammar.
Yeah.
Huge song. And throwbacks like Baby Got Back and all that stuff was only like 10 years old.
Yeah.
So like those songs are still relatively new party songs. Eazy-E, a lot of like these. So he made me, I'll never forget, it was like whatever could fit on a CD and he made doubles of it. He burned it and he's like, if anything goes wrong, just play anything off of these CDs. Bro, that got me through the first night.
Really?
It was packed. It was slammed. I mean, I don't know if you remember those days of the Keg. I mean, it was,
man, what, man? Me and my partners used to leave work
the things
in
you
our
see,
uniform.
Leave work, when you leave the club and look at what was on the ground.
Bro, just
everything from like unmentionables to bottles that we didn't sell there to like, a shoe. Like I'm like, oh, who's somewhere with one shoe?
Right.
Like, it must have been a good night, man.
Good night.
We used to call it party gravy. Whatever was on the floor.
On the floor
it was like
was
a
just,
mixture of just like.
Bruh.
Cane field dirt, just drinks, vodka, regret, everything's on the, like dust, like, glitter. I'm like, what's happening here? And it was crazy, man. I remember like learning on the job and just figuring it out and just watching how people reacted. And then what people would come up and ask for, you just knew to have it next time.
Yeah.
And like, man, like week by week, I would just be burning CDs, and at the time, I mean, you had to wait for that 8-speed burner.
Right, yeah,
on that tower computer I had.
Stuff.
Like, I would go find those songs that people loved, and like, and it was still like, as a kid, you'd hear it on the radio, and I'm in Sam Goody. You're trying to figure out what's that song that Dolby played. I'm still doing that. What's that song this person asked for?
Right.
You're asking your DJ friends. So, buying records every week, and that was a time where like, if you wanted a certain record or a certain remix, Tunes got like 5 to 10 copies. So if you were one of the DJs that got one, you got to play it. Snooze, you lose, you didn't have it, bro. So like, And records were like $5.99, $7.99 a song, like.
That's true.
And you had, and then if you were playing, you had to record it. It makes me like sad that it's not that way anymore. Where like you prepared all week for that one gig that you did at that one spot, and people just left like best night of my life thanks to this person,
right?
Creating those core memories. So yeah, back to that, I ended up getting like that. I got that dude, the gig that dude was like auditioning for, and it just kind of started there. But Dave was there, and to connect the radio thing, I played clubs from then on out. Hot 107.9, for those that don't know the story, at the time in like late 2003, they made a decision. We were Regent Broadcasting. I say we, I wasn't there yet. There's a classic rock station called K-Rock, huge station in Lafayette.
Yeah.
107.9 K-Rock. And imagine, R.I.P. to my man Ray Sutley. I think he played the last song on K-Rock. He was our production director. Probably hated me a little bit just because we took his baby away. But he's an amazing man. Dude.
Yeah.
I learned so much from that guy. But he was our production guy, which means he did all the commercials. You'd hear his voice. He had this like just booming voice, but one of the coolest dudes in the world. Funeral for a Friend by Elton John, I believe, was the last song.
Wow.
And then I think it was Get Low after that. So in the radio, there's a thing called stunting where it's not Birdman and Lil Wayne.
I was wondering.
They'll let something play for like months with nobody talking. I think they played 50 Cent in the Club or Get Low over and over again, back to back on that frequency for months. And people were like, what's going on? Like the first day, like, they just keep playing Get Low. Like, what happened? What's going on? What's this station? And there wasn't any real like identification. There were no DJs. And I knew they were doing this, and at the time, I think it was between November and whatever, and Dave like let me know, and Chris Logan, at the time, he was on Planet, and he was coming over to start what would be Hot 107.9, and it was this format that was new at the time. They used to call it Churban, so just quick lesson, CHR, Contemporary Hit Radio, Top 40, and Urban, Churban, so like, they were like, we're starting this new format where we pick the most popular hip hop and R&B songs that kind of have crossover appeal. So think Beyonce, Rihanna, artists that would live in like the R&B urban world, like and this is a time where music was still so separate, which is foolish to think about now, but in my mind, even then I was like, everybody listens to everything.
Right, yeah.
Why y'all have to have separate things?
Right.
Again, back to me in middle school. Getting to go hang out.
Different quads.
You're hanging out with the quote,
like putting it all together.
Calling people that like, that's the freaks. It's like, because they like
a certain
rock
type of music
and dress in like goth. Okay, like that girl was a freak last year and now she's a prep. Like we were in phases as kids. Like, so like getting to know all those different kids, like I've always felt like there were people who liked everything. So the concept was great. Dude, I didn't want to be in radio. At the time, by that time, I had left UL. I was producing music. I was DJing. I was traveling. I mean, I'm 4 years into this now. And I always thought, and I love y'all, if any of you were watching, radio DJs were like corny. It was really like, hey, radio, low voice, this, whatever. And like none of the radio DJs, in my opinion, were great. Like very few guys that were just radio DJs purely were like, you had a couple that could really throw down. Very rare, like my buddy Chris, Dave, like they were good at DJing, but like the way that I saw it and the way that I thought it needed to be, I only had a handful, maybe 2 guys, and they were the guys I was going to work with, like that really kind of understood like where I thought I was.
Right.
Keep in mind, I'm this arrogant 21-year-old kid who, again, decided to leave UL so that I can go pursue my dreams of DJing and traveling to places like Birmingham, Alabama. I got to travel, dog. Tampa needs me. I got to go play in Mandeville. I got a gig. I got a gig on the West Bank in a daiquiri shop.
Got to go to Harahan, bro.
I got to play in a strip mall tonight. Off Airline somewhere. So, but man, it's like, I was doing that, and it's like I didn't want to do it, but I was like, at the clubs I was working at, I thought the commercials were always corny, like tonight at whatever, ladies' night. And I'm like, oh man, like back to the school of Johnny Cage, all his commercials jammed. Like, bro, you would want to turn the commercial for the club. I'm like, man, we're going tonight. Like, so listen, that's how we made commercials. Like it would just, man, he would produce commercials like it was a whole damn new song. Like, so, I would cut some spots. So they've heard me on some spots. And so they knew I had enough I knew enough to kind of do it, but man, I didn't want to do it. So they kept asking for an air check, and I'm like, what's an air check? And it's like a sample of you on the radio. I've never been on the radio. So like, oh God, if I could find this demo tape, dude. It's like I did like a fake, like, hey, we're outside of the club, like this is so-and-so, like, you know, oh my, and then I like submitted a couple of commercials. So long story short, the night position that was open, I didn't get the job. And I was actually kind of happy about it. I'm like, oh, bummer. So like, I didn't let my friends down. Like, you know, I didn't want to seem unappreciative. But the guy who ended up getting the night slot was Sexy Lexi.
Yeah.
Lex, man. So Lex, shout out to Trill FM. Like, bro, him and I, like, just coming up. That's a brother for life. Like anybody that you've been in the trenches with.
Yeah.
And you know, like, shout out to like that. If you ever worked at like AT&T.
Yeah.
Or like, you know, whatever that job coming out of school was, like, you struggling with those people and just getting through it and having fun to make up for just how lame the work was. It wasn't lame, but like it just kind of growing up in this industry.
Yeah.
You know, he ended up getting it because he had some experience. I mean, this dude's voice was just, bro, he was like 12. You know, sounded like Barry White, like, oh, this boy, Sexy Lex. And bro, he was amazing. He's probably the best DJ who's not on the radio in Lafayette.
Wow.
I'll tell you, bro, it's Lex. He's got his own thing, you know? And so Lex ended up getting the night position. But the consultant was like, yo, Alan Sneed, who we're still close. I mean, I learned a lot from this guy. Yeah. He's like, yeah, but I like this kid. That's my Alan Sneed impression. Oh, well, you know, let's you know, part-time, Sundays from noon to 6. And I'm like, all right, yeah, like I could do my Saturday thing. Even if I'm out of town, I can get back in time to do it.
Right.
I'm like, all right, it's worth a try. So you get in there, and I'm like, all right, so I'm doing Sunday, basically Sunday Fun Day. So this is like March of 2004, and like I get in there, nerves. It's like I'm right back at that 16-year-old birthday party, where it's like you're just watching the clock moving. Because like in radio, we're open more than 7-Eleven. Like the clock, the songs are moving. It's almost like just think about the way your iTunes works. Like the next thing's gonna play.
Right. Yeah.
You can't. If you stop it, why is there dead air? Like radio can't have dead air. So I was like, I'm looking at it. And I'm just like, I know where I have to talk and how do I start it and stop it. And I already know like how music should go just from DJing, knowing how transition should work. But you can know everything and just still be, I'd love to hear that first time I was on, but like phones started lighting up first day. All my service industry friends, they're all Sunday Fun Day. Yo, we hear you.
That's what's
Shout
up,
out
man.
so-and-so.
Yeah.
They need somebody like you. Yo, we're all over here.
Right.
Shout us out. You know, I'm like, man, this is cool. So next thing you know, I'm talking too much. I'm like in between every song, what's up, whatever, you know, like, you know, so it was like, all right, cool, man, this is awesome. Then people started like around town, like recognizing that I was doing it.
Yeah.
Man, I heard you on the radio, dude. Like, and it's like at the time you don't realize how big of a deal that is. And to just be in those moments with those people. And to this day, I don't take it for granted. So, man, I'll tell you this, you hang around a radio station long enough, they'll put you to work. So you got to think, other than like my weekend gigs, bro, I was sleeping till whenever during the week. Like, I didn't start treating DJing like a 9 to 5 until way another phase of growing up, you know, which we can get into later. But, you know, I would just, when I'd wake up, what else was I doing? Well, let me just go by the station.
Yeah.
So then the same dude I was DJing with in the keg, Dave, like, hey, you want to come to remote broadcast with me? We're going here. I'm like, yeah, I want to go over there. That sounds fun. So you just hang around, and then eventually, like, next thing you know, now I'm doing middays. So I'm in the middle of the day. Now I'm full time.
Right.
And I'm like, I could do this midday thing. So it went from not wanting to do it at all, thinking it would interfere with DJing opportunities. I'm like, you know, 10 to 2. Dude, so in my mind, I'm like, I get there at 9:59, you know?
Yeah.
Or I'm like here
ready to go. Boom.
I'm like 9:55. Like I'm living downtown. It's a short drive getting there. And like more times than not, I'd be there as the morning show guy was finishing. So there'd be some overlap where we kind of banter a little bit.
Yeah.
If you're sitting in the studio, someone's going to acknowledge you.
Yeah, right.
And then people still like, you guys sound good together. So like within a year of doing middays or less, one day they're like, y'all should come in tomorrow and see how you sound together. And then we did it. We're like, yeah, let's do it, man. You know, let's see how it sounds. And then from that day on, like, sounded great. Let's just keep doing it. So now I'm doing mornings.
Wow.
And I'm like, wait, hold on. Is this really what I signed up for? And all the while I thought that the radio thing would kind of mess with like the DJ thing. But then more and more it just really started like, I didn't have to be anyone different, Tim, than I was. I didn't have to be like what I didn't want to be, like I'm the radio voice. Like I've had the same voice since I was like 7, you know. So I wanted to be more conversational on air and not as presentational.
Gotcha.
And I've always believed in that. I've always believed in like being hyper local, knowing what's going on, and kind of just, you know, learning from some of the best people. Scott Perrin, who he went by Tard on Planet Radio, but now he's Michael Scott. He's running a classic rock station. I mean, this dude is an OG, and through like the people I learned from, I've been learning from that guy, and just, you know, just all the guys that I get to work with every day. Bruce Michaels at the Dog, you know, with Chris and Dave, and just, you know, Reed coming on board after leaving the competition. And, I mean, dude, there's just you know, you learn even from guys like, you know, the Bobbies and the CJs and the Dolbys and the, you know, just think about local DJs who have been on air and just really relevant and just kind of game. Even the Troy D. Yeah, you know, man. Troy, man. Troy D. Troy, yeah, and his, you know, him being on the radio, but also being, you know, just a promoter and just a hustler, you know, and still figuring it out. And you pick up, and then just, you know, the national DJs. Like, so yeah, just, you know, again, like DJing, every opportunity that presented itself, you know, I was really selective, and, you know, people say luck doesn't exist. I believe, like, to me, luck is at the intersection of preparation and opportunity. So it's like when you're ready for it, you know, it's there. You can kind of pick and choose. There's no like, oh man, the moment's here and I'm not ready. Like, if you're ready for it, you know. So it's just been one thing after another. And to me, like, the work you do today is going to be the work you do tomorrow. It's not going to be a shot. No one's going to hand you, here's an opportunity. Nah, man, the work you're doing today is going to be what someone's going to see consistently for 6 months to a year, 6 years, and then they'll know you're ready because you've done it a certain way for so long. So, I could just think of key moments in my career where when opportunities popped up, man, I was right there. Well, yeah. You know, in the right place, right time. Some timing has been part of it. People leave, opportunities pop up. So, you know, I've been super fortunate in that regard of having that opportunity. So, and I just feel like even you don't have to be a DJ. Like, I think everyone's got that story in life of like, how did you end up where you are today right now? Whether it's in your career and your family. Yeah. Sometimes you're in a new family. Yeah. Sometimes you tried a few times. Like, we all go back. Like, you can't go back and like change the. Oh man, I wish I would have. Your mistakes make you who you are. Right. So, you know, I know a lot of people struggle with that, man. Live in those mistakes because they got you to where you're at. Yeah, you got to learn from them. More times than not. So, but yeah, that's how the radio thing started, dude. And it's just like every opportunity, I've just really been like selective. I've said no more than I've said yeah. Really? Which has made me stay here. Yeah, man. I almost moved to New Orleans twice. Yeah. It's a bigger market. You know, as a DJ, you want to put that on your bio. No offense to Lafayette, but yeah, man. I mean, New Orleans is a great place. But like, there's been so many little things that have happened to keep me here, and I'm so lucky that I've been able to do what I've done in my career without having to leave. Yeah, so, we love having you here, man, for sure. I mean, you have built something, you know, because I can tell you right now, like, my wife and kids, they listen to you in the morning for sure. You know, as far as like, you know, Fridays, they love it and whatnot, man. Like, how do you get yourself built up for that day? Because people they turn on the radio and they're like, man, digital coming on, man. We got to put on. I'm going to tell you a secret. I'll tell everybody a secret. Friday for me is the best day of the week because it takes the least amount of work. You know, there's so much work that goes into it, and whether it's been I've had a lot of morning show co-hosts and partners, and there's a lot of preparation that goes into it. It's like that meme that shows like the iceberg, and it's like the huge part underwater that you don't see, and people see that part, and they're like, oh, that looks awesome, I want to do that. And it's like, man, there's like preparation, knowing what's going on, knowing what you're going to talk about, knowing, you know, are we going to, you know, from this hot topic in pop culture, how could we steer that into like a question that's going to be something that like is relatable to like our audience, or like the target audience. So like, there's a lot of that work. Fridays, I don't have to think about any of that. Yeah. There's no question. There's no drama. There's no entertainment news, bro. It's music. It's, you know, I don't have to worry about timing. Like, for me, it's a party for me, and I feel like if you're having fun, everyone has fun. They all having fun, man. The Breakfast Jam is what people be looking forward to, man. Every Friday, it's like, man, we got to put on the Breakfast Jam. I'm like, man, that's you, man. Like, you and your team. You know, the rest of the DJs there, that started as like, we were really at risk of being in trouble with that, because that started, and we even, if you go to YouTube, there's me like talking about how we would do it. We would literally burn CDs every week of like, with nothing written on them, and it would be like 4 songs, like just throwback fun songs. Yeah. And if you break format in a radio station, it's not a good thing. But to me, some of the best things come from broken rules.
Yeah, right.
And at the time, Chris Logan and I were doing mornings, and we were like, man, what if on Fridays at 9 a.m., like that first music sweep of the hour, normally, like not to get too technical, like there's like a top of the hour, and then there's music till like 20 after.
Right.
And that was a time when most songs are 2 minutes now. That's when songs are like 4 minutes.
Yeah, right.
So you could squeeze in like 4 to 5 songs, and we would basically like we'd get in the computer and we would like deselect, like delete whatever songs we're supposed to play. And we're like,
I wanted to ask
and then we would connect,
yeah.
we would drag in this huge like DJ setup from like a closet. And then we had our engineer solder 2 cables to the board on a channel that we didn't use, and like run 2 like, plugs in.
Some rebels.
So, and it would and then we'd hide the wires behind it.
Yeah.
So like we'd undo the wires, plug it into the DJ mixer, and like manually, like we'd watch the whatever Hot 107.9 and like DJing in the club, and we'd start mixing, and we would mix
outlaws.
Fridays at 9 for 20 minutes. We would do what we called the breakfast jam, and we'd hide the CDs on the shelf behind us, and there'd just be like a stack of CDs where like I would write like, you'd have to write like HH, which was hip hop, like HH, and then like maybe something to let me know what it was and a date on it.
Yeah.
So like I would have that, and then you'd duplicate it. So we'd have them on each side. So I know I can go and just pick what songs and what order I'd want to go in,
yeah,
and kind of do whatever tricks and make it. It was like a live DJ mix. So that's how it started. And if the consultant was in town, we'd have to make sure like the day because he'd always leave on a Friday, and it'd be like, yo, are y'all in the car? Because they listen on the way to the airport. It's like, yo, he's out. He's out. He's
on the
cool.
flight.
All right,
yeah.
Cool. Thank God he was on that flight before 9. So again, Alan Sneed, sorry, not sorry. He was a great mentor and someone we learned from. But you got to break rules a little bit, man.
Yeah.
And it was like, if you break rules and people rock with it, it's like in a movie where something's wrong, but everyone loves it.
Yeah.
And like the boss is like, oh, okay, it's like a Mentos commercial,
Right.
You messed up, but all right, it turned out to be good. So that 20 minutes eventually turned into like 1 hour. And we got it sponsored. And then from there, I remember we went to 2 hours. And then eventually, by that time, Logan was gone, Reed was in. It was just something that was there. And then and then we were like, all right, well, it takes time to like mix it, and like by that time we didn't have to hide it anymore.
Right.
And then it went from 2 to 3 hours, and then when it was then went to 4, and it's like it could probably go to 7. So
yeah.
We won't. It'll go to noon when we need it to, but it's we're grateful that it's almost like a genre of music now. It's crazy.
It really is.
And it's like,
though.
I feel like no one owns it per se. Like I feel like I own it at this point now. It's
no,
like
they turn it for you guys, yes.
But it's like it's music that you can't get on Spotify, you can't get on Amazon.
Right.
And I'll tell you, the Breakfast Jam is like going back to the 16-year-old birthday party.
Yeah.
It's the CDs I collected as a kid. It's the records I bought at Tunes, the tens of thousands of records that I own, the records that I'm still looking for, the edits and remixes. And the rule of thumb is like there was logic to it. Again, back to that iceberg, the rule of thumb was generally no songs newer than 10 years old, no songs older than 20 in terms of when they were relevant. So you can have a 30-year-old song as long as it was still relevant in the club 20 years ago. Again, man, I'm like the most methodical person. So as time goes on, there was a point where Laffy Taffy was a brand new song.
Right, yeah.
Well, if I play Laffy Taffy now in the Breakfast Jam, that's a late 2000s ringtone rap song.
Yes.
So you got to understand what are the new throwbacks?
Yeah.
So if somebody wants to hear Kevin Gates from 2014, when we started the Breakfast Jam in the late 2000s, that song didn't exist yet. So it's an evolving genre, if you will, of what songs qualify. And then you could still play Stevie B and some songs from the late 80s, it depends, but knowing your audience, who's our target, how old were they when some of these songs were out, and just really knowing, man, if you play a song from the late 80s, you gotta think, all right, let's just do the quick math, right? That's damn near 40 years ago.
Right.
Now. So think about someone who was 18 40 years ago. How many, and I know there's some 65 plus year olds who listen, so shout out to you, but you just have to think about it that way. What's that average, if we have a target audience of, in radio, there's still 25, 54, still that money. What's that audience? Because that's really who listens. We know it's 18 to 80.
Right.
8 to 80, as some people would say. So how do you please all of those people by being on the money and kind of knowing the Wayne, but not the new Lil Wayne. Like, oh man, Wayne, like Carter 3 Wayne or mixtape Wayne.
Yeah.
And then having clean edits and knowing what songs have just really stood the test of time, specifically like locally here. Because you drop the Breakfast Jam anywhere else in the world, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
But in Lafayette, it's like...
Bruh, it's a whole...
Yeah. There's people that listen, like if I showed you the metrics and like where people listen and the shout outs and overseas, it's crazy, man. It's, but it's like, again, that's the day that I get to rest because it's easier and it's just fun. We meet so many people just, as long as we know that I hate for managers and bosses out there, I'm sorry about productivity on Friday, but to me, like ultimately it is a better day at work if you start your day that way.
Right.
For that mom in the car that like, just found out about signed papers that morning.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, all right, well, at least I can jam.
Right.
Or it takes you back. Or maybe that's the moment that you hear those songs you remember.
That's a testament to you, though, man.
Yeah.
Like, that you guys do that for the people. You
It's for the
guys
people.
put them in a good mood to go to
That's
their
it. It's
job,
a mentality. It's a mindset. So,
Yeah.
there's I love the Lafayette, like nobody in Lafayette works afternoon on Friday. It's like, bro, you drive by La Fonda and all these places, like, is anybody working?
Right, yeah.
It's like, the Breakfast Jam comes from like that, of like the people of Louisiana and just how you feel on a Friday. If you go to a buttoned up business, they'll put that polo on Fridays, you know what I'm saying? Because people are ready for the weekend.
Yeah.
We're hardworking people. We work hard during the week to have fun on the weekend.
Yeah.
So, again, to me, everything is a credit to listening more than talking. So that's where that came from, and that's where everything comes from.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Well, look, man, this one, we got more, all right?
Yeah.
This is the end of episode 2, but we got more, all right? We're going to check back with you on episode 3. Make sure y'all click that link for episode 3. It's Tim, DJ Digital, signing out for episode 2. We're going to see you on the next one. Yeah, bro, because I got a couple of questions for sure, man. What's up, Louisiana? Thanks for watching another episode of Louisiana on Fire. Make sure to like, subscribe, and share. Oh, and don't forget to hit that bell so you can be notified for the next episode.